Hi, I'm Shaun, and this is the Shaun Wood All Good podcast. Hello guys, welcome back to the Shaun Wood All Good podcast. Today's episode is going to be about this topic that I've heard come up with some of the guests that I've been having on my live podcast. And I've spoken to like three or four people on the live podcast now, and there's been this consistent topic that's come up from all of them. They're all creators. They're all people that are very actively putting content out in the world. And the commonality there, the thing that they keep coming back to is about being genuine to yourself and putting out the stuff that you want to do, or that you want to put out there, and not getting too caught up with what you're not getting too caught up with creating what you think people want to see and creating what you want to create. And that has come from the likes of Jason Paul, Katie McDonald, Pedro Salgado are the three that come to mind, where in very different ways they were all, when I asked them sort of what, and Nightscape was in there as well. And when I asked all of them of like, what do you think is the tipping point? What is the thing that made you guys blow up or your channel take traction? It was when they let go and stopped trying to create the content that they thought people were going to want them to make, and they started making the content that was true to who they want to be. They saw this growth come. And look, one of the best ways for creativity is to go out and research other people, research other disciplines, and bring that back to the sport. That's something that I talk about a lot. And I think it's a very important skill for the early part of creating the tool, developing the skill, creating the habit. It's a nice way to be able to forge the tool of creativity and creating. However, at a certain point, I feel like you generate enough data and you start to put in your own personal taste into that, and you start to iron out your own style and your own direction that you want to go. And I feel like it's possibly at that point that you need to start asking yourself these types of questions of like, where do I want to go with this? What is it that I'm trying to add to the world? What value am I adding to the world? And if you start to ask yourself those questions, and you've brought in all of that other knowledge and all of these other inspirations, then you're able to start moving into the direction that you want to go. And I feel like it's at this point, once you've done your apprenticeship or you've spent your time chasing your mastery, that you're able to start creating your genuine work and the stuff that people are going to start to know you for. However, this isn't going to be a short, small process. The channel, whatever you're trying to create, is just not going to catch overnight, first time that you try it. And I feel like there's a lot of people that drop off in these early stages of skill acquisition or trying to create creative work. If it doesn't take off for the first time, you don't get 10,000 views on the first one, it can become disheartening. But this is the process. This is what it takes to be able to create the work that sticks. Another part of creating genuine work or creating the stuff that you want to create is also understanding that you're never actually going to know what is going to take off. Another common thing that I've been hearing through these podcasts is that a lot of the time people will create things that they think is going to be go viral or go perform very well, and then there's these other projects that they don't feel as good about. They don't feel like that's going to be the one they hit, and often they feel like they're not going to put that out, or there's this resistance to putting it out, and then they'll put that out into the world, and that ends up being the very piece of content that does stick and does get the 100,000 views or 10,000 views or whatever it is, whatever level they see as being successful for their piece of content. So it's being your genuine self, but also understanding that you don't know as much as you think you know, and that unless you are doing this sort of regular upload, setting a schedule, setting expectation, creating trust and attention with your audience, and then creating and then having the ability to let go because you're sure, you're confident in your ability, you're confident in your skill, having that self-belief to put that content out there and just let the universe do what it's going to do with it. You're not going to, you don't need to be too attached to those pieces of content. put your best work in, make sure you're doing your best, always do your best. If you read the 4 agreements, it's one of the 4 agreements, always do your best. And if you're sticking to those fundamentals, staying true to your word by actually hitting the time, hitting the schedules when you're hitting the upload schedules when you said you're going to, and then just letting go when you put it out there, these are the little micro progressions that are going to result in you getting to the place that you want to be, which is wider viewership and more people seeing your work and recognizing your work and hopefully following you. That brings me to a book that I am currently reading, which is called Letting Go. And it talks a lot about, one of the key concepts within the book is this concept of surrender. And I guess this is another useful tool that can, be used in the creative process. A lot of my journey has been about overcoming resistance, which was the ability to actually get past the force that was stopping me from creating in the first place. And that was something that I've talked about quite a lot. Is overcoming fear, overcoming resistance. I built workshops around them. I went and taught the physical practice of overcoming fear, and then I went through a mentor program to help me overcome resistance. And I feel like for the most part, this process of the podcast has been my apprenticeship in overcoming resistance, to the point now where I can just turn the mic on and I can talk to you guys and share some of my knowledge and share what's going on in my head and share that out, get feedback from you guys, learn from the feedback, creating this small community of backwards and forwards, which is very much helping me. And then from some of the things that I see on Instagram is helping other people, which makes me so happy and so proud of the work that I'm creating. But so there was resistance, and overcoming that has been part of my journey. So now on the other end, on the other side of that, when it comes to overcoming resistance, where resistance is your yang, your yin, or your polarity to the other side, I would say is surrendering once you have created that work and you ready to put it out there. And I think what surrendering is not being too attached to the outcome of that piece of content, because we are fishing for big fish. We're fishing for sharks, right? And unless you're throwing that reel out every day or whatever, I believe at the moment in upping the urgency. If you want to get good, in the last episode I talked about this 30 video and 30-day challenge to really build this habit of getting content out and really just killing resistance. There's no time to care about how I look on camera or if I said the right thing when you're trying to put content out every day. I just have to do it. I have to get it out, and it's building this resilience and it's building this shell around myself that is, I'm feeling more and more empowered every day. So that is also contributing to letting go and surrender. But yeah, so if one side of it is working through this resistance and there's a journey to go through about being able to create, on the other end of that, I believe you need to be able to surrender and let go of the content once it's there, not get too caught up in the stats. There's a version of myself that could feel that my content's not performing at the way I want it to because it doesn't match the numbers that I used to get. When I was putting out content with Farang, right? But it was just different circumstances. The content was different. It was purely entertainment, where this stuff's a bit more educational, sometimes inspirational, and a little bit of entertainment. But Farang, and there was like 4 of us that were doing it, and we had our own audiences. So it's very unrealistic for me to expect to be getting first day 10,000 views on my content just because that's what we used to get. On Team Farang. So the process of surrender for me is going, look, this is where I'm at. I have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. However, that audience is not active the way that it used to be because I haven't uploaded for a long time. So it's going to take time to reactivate that audience. So surrendering for me is not worrying that I'm not getting as much views. And then in the past have had the habit of scrolling my feed or getting caught up on likes or stats. So surrender for me is just putting it out there. I've heard Joe Rogan talk about it before, and it's just post and drop, I think he calls it, where I am wanting to build community, so I try and log in once a day, to reply to comments, or a couple times a day to reply to comments. But as one of my mentors, John, talks about, he calls it for 10 for 1. So if you're doing, 10 hours of content creation a day, it'd be 1 hour of commenting, and making sure that you stay true to yourself, and making sure you're disciplined in the fact, or if it was 10 hours of content a week, which is probably a bit more realistic for most people, 10 hours of content a week, it's only 1 hour of recording, responding to comments, so maybe 10 minutes a day, right? So trying to keep a healthy relationship with being on social media and not getting too caught up on the stats. I do know people, I've witnessed people, friends of mine in the past, who have built successful YouTube channels. I can think of some close friends when I was in Sweden. I watched and helped their channel go from 0 up to their 100, 200,000 followers now. It's really cool to see what they did. However, they had that YouTube Studio app installed, and it was an obsession with numbers. It was an obsession with checking it a million times a day. So I don't think that would be healthy, and almost counteracts the purpose of doing the content in the first place. So surrender is also an important part of this process. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I hope there's some value there. If you know someone that this may add some value to, then please share this podcast with them. I'm really enjoying doing this batching, getting this out there. I'm doing the lives over on YouTube every Monday. I can confirm, I'll let you know that I've spoken to Pasha. Pasha's wanting to come on the podcast. So I'm going to line that up in the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited about him. If you know anything about Pasha's story, he's an incredible athlete, but there's also a lot of intelligence behind it as well. He's not someone who talks as much as, say, maybe I do or Jason does, but do not be fooled. He's a highly intelligent guy, and he has so much value to add, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with him and having that conversation. So this has been the Shaun Wood All Good podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time, and I will speak to you guys next time. Peace.